Hey guys, Garrett here, and today I want to tell you about how I was able to get free land to build my dream home. Now, if you've seen any of my other videos, a lot of them outline how I built the home, the different processes that we went through, and what you should and should not do whenever you build a home. But I didn't tell you how I actually got the piece of land to build it. And yes, I ended up getting that for free. About 8 years ago, my wife and I were just about to get married and we wanted to consolidate. I had a house, she had a condo, and we wanted to get a place of our own. And so we were looking at homes, and of course we were also looking at land to see if we could build something as well. Well, all the land that we found was either pretty darn expensive, it had power lines going through it, or it was within a subdivision that had so many regulations that we couldn't do what we actually wanted to do. So we had to get pretty creative and think outside of the box. Sometimes you have to force something to happen for you and able to get what you want. The only true way to get free land up front is if you inherit it. And obviously someone has to pass away in your family in order for you to get that. Plus they have to already own land. So you're probably going to want to look at different ways of buying land and then being able to sell part of it later. It could have a house on it or not, or it could just be a big piece of farmland. But there are ways to divide that land to where you end up getting the piece that you want. You can sell off what you don't. There are many ways that you can try to find some land. You can just drive around and see if you like a piece of land and then approach that owner and see if they'd like to sell it. You can scour the papers and see if there's any probate court cases where there's land involved or property involved that has a significant amount of land. Try to get a hold of those family members and see if they want to sell. I've never done this, but I know it's a great way to do it. You could also go to tax foreclosure auctions, and if you do your due diligence, you can figure out what the properties are that are listed within that auction beforehand and find the ones that meet your criteria. I actually went to one just this last week and I was looking at a 20-acre piece of property. And I was willing to give about $100,000 for it, and it ended up going for $165,000. Most of the stuff that went just this last week went at or above what the typical market price is. So this may be one of those plays that you have to wait a little while before the market cools down, or you just may get lucky in where you live that things aren't quite so hot. You could also go to land auctions, and where I live in Kansas, there's lots of farmland out there, so there are quite a few agents that deal strictly just in land. And so I actually did this a couple of years ago, ended up finding 40 acres near my own house that I was just planning to hold on to for a while, but the market's gotten so crazy that I'm actually subdividing that as we speak into 6 different lots, and then I'm going to be selling it pretty soon. The last way that I'm going to talk about is the typical way, which is the MLS, and you can look at land or lots or houses that have quite a bit of land and see what you can do with that. Now, you're probably not going to get a discount on this. You're going to pay full price. So again, to make this work to where you get free land, you're probably going to have to buy something that is actually at a discount. And one of the best ways to do that is through a foreclosure. When my wife and I were going through that process, we ended up finding a house that had 14.2 acres on it. And it was a lot that was about 450 feet wide by a quarter mile long. So the house was actually set on the front half of it, which then told me, hey, I know I can subdivide this into 2 lots and then keep the back lot to build what we want to build, because we always wanted a house that was set quite a ways off of the road. We ended up buying this property for $274,600, and we knew it was a discount at the time. You gotta remember, this was actually back in 2013 when this happened, and so there was a flood of foreclosures on the market, and the market hadn't fully recovered quite yet. So we ended up getting a deal on it, and at the time, since we were consolidating 2 homes and gonna rent out hers, and then we needed a place to stay, this was a good option because we could live in that front property while we were subdividing the whole property. Now, subdividing a property isn't as simple as just saying, hey, I have 2 lots. There's an actual process that has to go with it. And in Kansas, or at least in my jurisdiction, anything that's under 20 acres has to be platted before it can be subdivided. And a plat is basically just a fancy map that has all the lot lines, the setbacks, the easements. It shows the roads and the land contours, as well as any drainage improvements that have to be made. When you're having your property platted, you're gonna have to get a hold of a licensed land surveyor and most likely a licensed engineer. My background as a licensed professional civil engineer proved very valuable in this process. I knew a whole bunch of firms that could do this work for me. So I just hired one of them to do it. Ended up costing $5,500 for them to do the whole process, the plat, get it through the zoning. In my case, we didn't have to change zoning, but that's something you want to think about. You may have to change zoning to be able to do what you want to do. It took about a year to get that done from start to finish, and that's pretty long for where I live. The reason it took so long was an attorney back in the 70s or 80s that was filling out the property description for my original piece of land screwed up one of the angles, and so we had to go through a whole process to get that changed back to what it was supposed to be, so then we could proceed with the plat. Once the plat was done, that was about it. All I had to do at that point was just cut the trees out to make a driveway, and then make a driveway, and then of course build everything that I had to build. Of that original 14.2 acres that came with the property to begin with, we lost about a quarter of an acre because the right-of-ways had to change within the platting process, but that wasn't really a big deal. The front lot that had the house on it ended up with 6.2 acres, and we were able to sell that off. That left us with 7.8 acres to build our house. Once that plat was complete, then I got to work on making the driveway and doing all that kind of stuff. And then we finally, once we were ready to build the house, listed that front property for sale. Ended up selling it for $329,000. So if you do the math, we bought it for $274,600. Probably put about $25,000 into that property plus the platting fees. So that's a net cost of $300,000. We sold for $329,000, had some fees in that as well. So we ended up actually walking away plus $15,000 on the deal, and we got to keep that almost 8 acres for free. So when someone comes up to you and says, there's no way you can get free land. Well, yes, if you inherit it, you obviously can. But if you can play the long game and you have the patience to do it, there's absolutely a way to get free land, and I'm proof of it. Just think outside the box, try to go after something that you can modify to be what you want it to be, and then you'll get something that people say couldn't happen. If we chose to stay in that front house rather than building our dream home in the back, that lot without the house that's on it today would have been worth in today's market about $100,000. So again, it's just another way that you can make money, or you can offset the cost of the other house. It leaves you with options whenever you think outside the box. Hey guys, hit that like button down below and subscribe. I'm gonna have lots more content just like this. We'll see you next time.